All right, so let's start jumping into covalent bonds, how to draw them and whatnot. So we have chlorine here. If we think about chlorine, it's going to be a halogen. And so chlorine is going to be right here, 7 valence electrons. So if we draw its kind of Lewis structure right here, we have 7 valence electrons. And if you think about chlorine, it's a diatomic gas, so exists as Cl2. So let's see what that looks like. They're both 1 electron short of a filled valence shell or a filled octet. And so these 2 electrons are going to kind of combine together into a bond. And we draw this bond as a straight line. So this is a bond, and it's 2 electrons. Each bond is 2 electrons. And then these electrons around chlorine are what's known as lone pairs. And so when you're counting electrons, you basically double count the bonds, right? So this chlorine has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you count both electrons in the bond for 8 valence electrons or a filled valence shell. And same thing for the other chlorine, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 valence electrons. So they both have a full valence shell, and that is preferred. So this is known as the octet rule because there's 8 valence electrons in most elements. Hydrogen is kind of the exception in that only wants 2. And what we're doing here by forming bonds is basically we get to double count these electrons. So you can have single bonds, you can also have double and triple bonds. You cannot have quadruple bonds. So only single, double, or triple. Let's think about O2, right? Oxygen is also diatomic gas. If we think about where oxygen is, it's 1, 2 electrons short of an octet. So in general, it's going to want to form 2 bonds, right? It has 6 valence electrons. And so if you're thinking about both of them getting an octet, they've both got to share 2 electrons. And so what we're going to form here is a double bond. And again, if you count the electrons, you have a filled octet. And then something like nitrogen, also a diatomic gas, exists as N2. If we look at where nitrogen is, it's 1, 2, 3 electrons from a filled valence shell. So it's generally going to want to form 3 bonds. And so when it's bonding with itself, it's going to do a triple bond. So it looks something like this, right? Where both of these nitrogens have a filled valence shell, a full octet.